Welcome to Mistakes Were Made. This is a special episode Sarah and I recorded on October 4th at The Spot in West Seattle. We were on a panel at Liberating Love Fest, which was hosted by CFRE, the Seattle Coalition for Family and Relationship Equity.
And the first person you're going to hear is Tyson, who you might remember from our episode on solo poly and the solo poly experience. He put the event together and he was the MC for the night.
This should be a great primer for anyone who's wondering how to share their poly lifestyle at the Thanksgiving dinner table this year. Enjoy.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining tonight. It's been really lovely to meet all of you and to have you all here. I'm going to introduce our speakers, but I'm not going to go over their professional background because I kind of already did that in the posts about this event. I'm going to instead talk a little bit about why I think all these speakers are special to me. So I'm going to start with Ramsey, right? Ramsey is someone who has really helped me be more accepting and embracing of my brown skin, of my indigenous heritage, and like really helping me to see that it's okay to own that. So thank you, Ramsey, for that. I appreciate that. And then we have Alex. And Alex and I we've been hanging out for a while now. We've done a couple different things. We did a podcast together, and then we did a queer men's group, right? And you have really helped me see what a good man is, and like helped me really to define what that looks like for me. So thank you for that. Right? And then we have Sarah, right? And Sarah, okay, so there are a few people in my life I feel like that I can call like a hero. And I feel like Sarah is someone who is so passionate about what she does and about what she believes, and she lives her values even when it's really difficult, even when it puts her at risk. And I can't tell you how much I really admire that and how much that inspires me. So thank you for that. Right. Then we have Elizabeth. And so I am convinced that it is impossible for at least me and most people that I know to be sad when she is in a space with you, right? I don't think it's possible because you're so bright. And I think when we first met at the first event, like you were very bright, and I've really appreciated your friendship. Then we have Jessa, okay? And our friendship is relatively new, I think beginning of this year. But I admire how much you go hard on things, right? I know that sometimes, right? It's a lot, but like with all of this, you noticed the need with the polyamorous community. You noticed that you saw the gaps in our legal system, and instead of just like talking about it, you created an organization, and you've made this happen. And you're another hero of mine, and I really appreciate you. So, Jessa.
What a segue. So, already been introduced, but Jessa, my pronouns are she, her. I'm the executive director of the Seattle Coalition for Family and Relationship Equity, and I'm really glad to see you all here. Thank you so much, everyone, for showing up. This is phenomenal. And we started this organization a little bit close to a year ago, so we're very new. So to have an event like this where people show up is so encouraging, and it really just drives home the fact that there is a need within our community for this work that we're doing. I'm going to talk more about that with the panel, of course, but I just want to start off by sharing more of what we do at CFRE. So we are partnered with Open at the national level, which is the Organization for Polyamory and Ethical Non-Monogamy. Thanks again, David. And Open has been working with municipalities around the country to pass non-discrimination ordinances for polyamorous and ethically non-monogamous people. We have 4 cities so far in Massachusetts and California where being polyamorous is now legally protected under city law, so you can't be discriminated against in employment, housing, access to healthcare, government services. And we want to do that here. So I reached out to Open last year and was like, what are you doing in Seattle? How can I get involved? And they're like, could you do it? And I was like, fine. So I was like, yeah, how do we get started? So we got started. They've been a great partner for us. We are making a lot of progress throughout Washington and in the Pacific Northwest more broadly. I'm really excited about some news that we will be able to share more specifically in the near future, but just know that non-discrimination protections are coming to a city near you, including hopefully Seattle. We have some information over here. You can write letters to your city council members, other people as well. If you scan the QR code, you can access that online. What we want to do is have you reach out to your elected officials and talk about why this work's important to you. All right, so that's part of why we're here today, and also to have this bigger conversation about why is this even important. So with that, I guess I'll stop talking for a second and we'll just transition to the next thing.
Great. You stop talking for a second and then I'll make you talk.
Okay, good. Yeah.
So jumping in and kind of getting this conversation started, Jessa, I want to just kind of start at the beginning, which is why is this work so important? Why is it important for us to activate our poly, non-monogamous communities around this wider acceptance and protections? Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, thank you. So the reason I got involved with this work and wanted to make it happen here in Seattle is because I've had this, I've been polyamorous for 15 plus years now, and been through a lot of things in the personal realm of difficulties and complications, which we'll talk about a bit, I'm sure. But since being in Seattle, I've had partners who are afraid to be out at work, who have run into problems at work, including losing their job, right? And when that happened to someone who I was in a relationship with, a lot of people responded and said, that's got to be illegal. You should look into this. And I was like, actually, it's not illegal, right? And the scary thing is you have people who might be opening up their relationship, or they might be polyamorous for a very long time, and they aren't aware of the risks that they're potentially taking, right? Especially when you have various, identities that might intersect and compound any kind of marginalization within society. It makes you even more at risk to be open and loud. I, as a transgender woman in Trump's America, can be, for now, trans in public, right? But me saying I'm polyamorous at work could put my job at risk, right? And there are certain places that might have morality clauses, or they might say, well, you work with this at-risk population, or you work in this field, and we can't have you talking about that gross stuff at work. Meanwhile, they talk about their monogamous relationships all the time, and the wedding pictures and all this stuff, and why are they shoving it in our face,
Ew.
That's exactly right. Monogamy, gosh. So for me, it was just realizing in this one small area of my life where I've seen people either not be aware of what risks they were taking by being open, or people who were afraid, rightfully so, just in some cases, to speak up and be open, right? So I was like, we need to do something about that, and then when you look at it, a bit more in depth beyond just the risks of being out as poly and running into institutional barriers and government bureaucracy and all the gaps that exist in the law and the ways that you might be breaking the law and you don't even know. The number of places where you could be committing a felony just for being polyamorous, or being polyamorous and having relationships where there's children around could cause all kinds of issues with child custody disputes, or, again, being accused of things and brought into court. And so C-Free exists to start to close those gaps within Washington. We've got a great starting place where there are laws about parentage and also protection for domestic violence victims that look beyond the monogamous and nuclear family model to say, hey, what does your household actually entail? And in Washington, it's pretty big, actually. It's if you're in a dating relationship with someone, that's a person in your household who could have certain rights, and also you can be protected from in a really bad situation, right? So we have a great starting point, but there's still gaps that we can be working on, whether it's co-parents living and raising children in multiple households, or people who want to be in a domestic partnership but don't live with that person, and how that can actually kind of be insurance fraud in certain circumstances, if a judge were to look at it a certain way. So those are some of the gaps we identified, and that's why I think it's important to make it safe to be out as polyamorous and make it safe to just be your authentic self in these contexts.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to get it just a show of hands to sort of see where we're all at with this idea, especially of being out at work. If you feel comfortable participating, how many people here are out at work as poly? Okay. So I'm that seems like a little over half of folks here, which I think is interesting. And that kind of lends itself to the question I wanted to ask you, Elizabeth, or get you to get your thoughts on, which is, given that there could be social, political, legal, cultural consequences for being out as poly, as someone who works so much with poly and queer communities, especially around relationships and self-development, what are some of the reasons why it's important to be out? What are some of the reasons to be out, even though it can be dangerous? Or what do you encounter in the communities you work with?
Yeah, for sure. Hi, my name is Elizabeth Cunningham, and a little tiny bit about my background before I answer the question. My background is in gender and sexuality and politics, so I have a couple degrees in that. I worked at a domestic violence center for 3 years in community education and outreach, and then I determined to switch that to preventative care rather than helping people get out of unhealthy relationships, starting to help people get into healthy relationships, and then started working specifically with the polyamorous, non-monogamous, LGBTQIA plus communities back in 2017. I also identify as polyamorous. I've been out as 15 years. Yeah, 15 years for me as well. And I'm also queer too. So that's a little bit about me. And one of the reasons why it is important to have these conversations in your personal life. And before I say this, I know that every single person's, situation is different. This is not me, telling you, what to do in your life. You get to determine what works for you and what feels safe and at what pace it feels safe for you as well. So this is not me saying, just like, don't be like, Elizabeth Cunningham told me to come out to everyone in my life. That's not what I'm talking about.
Thanksgiving dinner this year.
Yeah. Start calling people now. Everyone get out their phones. Why, one of the reasons why it's really important to start having these conversations with people that you feel safe having these conversations with is because this is where it starts. This is where it starts for our community, is in having conversations with the people in your world, with the people that you feel safe with, because for multiple reasons. Number one, for you as the individual, because it's going to give you more people in your life, more support, more allyship in your life as well. And you're going to start to build that support system around you. So that way, when you do, decide to take those, next steps, I kind of think of it as like a circle, right? Where it's like you're in the center of the circle, and then your super, super safe people are like in that little circle around you. And then, the circle that goes out from that are like your super safe people, and then you got your safe people, and then you got your like, I hope they're safe people. But as you continue to build your circle, then it's going to be easier for you to talk about in your life in general. And also, if something were to happen that is, you have a bad conversation where it dysregulates your nervous system, you have a conversation where you lose a friend, you have a conversation where it puts something larger at risk, you know that you have a support system, and you know that you have, a safety net around you. We also see, studies with relationships and how relationships work in our life is that our support system also determines our courage and the amount of risk that we're willing to take as well. So that's just on a you level. But if we're talking about a grassroots organization level, what helps get grassroots organizations, lifted up is that not only are the people who are directly affected active, but that there is that allyship, and there's also those like tertiary and beyond relationships that are like, oh, I know a person who's polyamorous, I know a person who's non-monogamous, I know a person, and I love them, I trust them, they're cool, we had this conversation, blah, 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 blah. It's those conversations inside of grassroots movement that make the difference, because the ripple effect that has is massive. It's so because grassroots movements also, and social change works off of social networking. And when you are in, you don't know how much one conversation with someone about who you are is going to ripple out into a room that you're not in. Right. And so being able to have these conversations, and again, starting with your super, super, super safe people, like you have no idea, like the ripple effect that causes, and then helps the entire community. And as a lot of you are probably well aware, when smaller communities have more rights, everyone has more rights. So it's also a ripple effect out into larger communities as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so I really appreciate that connection, the idea that not only is it important for our personal growth and safety and integration and sense of self to be able to be out in as many places as possible, but that siloing of communities and of our identities actually saps collective power. And that sapping of collective power is intentional. And so we're living in a culture where certain identities, it's not safe to be out in these identities. It's not safe to talk about them. And that is in part because it keeps us away from each other and from our ability to organize.
Yeah.
Maybe just piggybacking on that, I wanted to kick back to Jessa with something we were talking about earlier, just about how, polyamory is a less visible identity than a lot of other marginalized identities. So, a lot of us can basically pass as monogamous, right, in our lives. And that's certainly true for me. I can show up at work and appear to be a normal. And a lot of us are like that. So what are the advantages? Why is it important, or do you think it's important for folks like me to be more out with that identity?
Oh my God, I love that question. That is such a good question. What a fan-fucking-tastic question.
Oh, thank you.
Also, I'm the hype girl, if you haven't noticed that about me. Yeah. So yes, so important, because especially I love that you asked that question, because you are someone who is very hetero presenting, very mono presenting. You're also a tall, big white dude, These are facts that we can see, yes. And again, when we talk about social networking, and we were also talking about influence as well. And so if you know someone who is who is an attractive white male. Yeah, you're welcome.
Also attractive.
Oh yeah. we're just gonna stack it on. Lovely personality, but when you know someone who is more quote unquote normal, or quote unquote comes off as normal, or a part of a larger social structure, then it causes people to question what people's identity should be, right? I'm an attractive white woman, and then when people I look very hetero, which is hilarious. I asked one of my clients this was a couple months ago. I was like, "What's the most surprising thing about me?" And they were like, "How gay you are." What a great compliment. But myself included, when someone like me comes out as super fucking gay or comes out as polyamorous, it questions what people think that identity is supposed to look like. They're like, "Oh, look at this fucking hot white chick. She's gay as fuck. I did not think that you don't look like a lesbian, blah, blah, blah." And when you have people who do look quote unquote normal, who are willing to have these conversations, and we could talk about privilege in this, blah, blah, blah. But when you do have people who are normal, who are having these conversations, it does have people be like, "Wait, do I actually know anything about polyamory? Do I actually know anything about queerness? Maybe it's not so fucking weird after all, because Elizabeth is fucking cool, And so I think that so important to have
Particularly important that cool people come out and represent
absolutely
Poly as cool.
Come talk to me. We will have cool lessons.
I need that.
So, but Jessa, when we were talking about this, you kind of had a different take, so I want to hear that.
Yeah, I was going to jump in and say, yes, totally agree. I think, visibility is important, and also building community power by removing us from our silos is how we build acceptance within society. We do that through that work, and we also do it through passing laws that protect people so they can be out in the first place. The interesting thing for me that I run into a lot when I have these conversations, though, is how, let's set aside homophobes and transphobes for a second, because who wants to talk to them anyway? Generally, when you talk to cool humans, they will agree unanimously that queer people shouldn't have to be in the closet. Mm-hmm. But when I say polyamorous people shouldn't have to be in the closet too, right. Some people get quiet.
Right.
Right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's for a couple of interesting reasons. Maybe it's people say queer people shouldn't have to fight for this. Let Alex do it. Mm-hmm. Right? And yes, I want to see Alex out there. I want to see people who have privilege and aren't going to be, immediately visible as a minority of some sort. But also the rights that we create for anybody expand to those people who are in marginalized places in society, right? Okay. So that's one thing that I run into is people say things sometimes as bluntly as, sounds like you're bringing white people problems to me. Like, why are we talking about this? And I understand in this time right now, we have to talk about, being strategic about what battles we're fighting and what sorts of resources we're putting into certain fights and who is taking on those fights, right? But I don't want to dismiss, Alex and say, you know what, just be quiet over there. I'm so sad that you can't talk about being polyamorous, boo-hoo, right? You should be able to, right? And I should be able to as well, And so I don't want to get into conversations about what rights are important and which ones aren't, But we do have to be strategic as a community here. Who's going to stand up first and who's going to start building that visibility and start helping people to come out and say, oh, they're cool. I like that person. Once I get cool lessons, I'll also be able to do that, But I think that's...
You are all cool. You are all cool.
But that's a question I have for people here is how open should we be and how much should this movement matter, especially in this current moment, right? What resources should be putting into it and how much does it matter to you as an individual and a member of your various communities that this is something that we're fighting for?
Yes?
Yeah.
Oh. Hey there. I'm Katie. Practicing polyamory. Not good at it. Okay, there we go. Hi, I'm Katie. Practicing polyamory for a few years now. Still getting good at it. But I had an experience over a couple weeks ago, talking to some women that were a part of my convention group and just casually talking about relationships. But I'm polyamorous and they're monogamous or maybe poly, but never met somebody that's also poly or isn't from Seattle. The greater Seattle polycule. Everybody knows. Okay, so, but oh yeah, my ex, and then my other ex, and then my other ex, and my girlfriend, and they're like, what? Relationship dynamics are really fun. So being able to talk about it, I think is important for everybody. And just being casual about it instead of making it some taboo conversation is been really successful for myself. So
can I ask a follow-up question?
Sure.
Just about how does that feel to you when you cross that sort of bridge with people?
I don't think about it.
You don't think about it, you just do it?
Do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't ooh, are they going to be mad at me? I'm openly queer, openly trans, and will answer anybody's question, even if it comes from a place of ignorance and from a place of misunderstanding or, generalized hatred. And I will talk to them about it in a civilized way, and it throws them for a tailspin because they're not used to that. And I like work in construction, so being next to people that have wildly different viewpoints is like such a common thing, and I'm like in their face because I exist. And yeah, thank you. And so yeah, like I stopped thinking about it a long time ago because I stopped caring about what people think about me, because I know that some people don't like me, and some people are really ecstatic that I'm there and presenting in the way that I am, because it gives other people permission to be themselves. And that's where I think it's really important, is just to be yourself.
Thank you. Thank you, Katie. I want to take the question, Jessa, that you asked about why this moment now, and Katie, what you were saying about sort of standing up, being yourself, existing, and ask you something, Ramsey. Because I think the reason why it's important in this moment now is not just about us being accepted into a mainstream. It's actually about us influencing that culture and changing it as well. And like, whether that's through our queerness, our polyness, all our identities and political identities, it's not about asking like, are we allowed to be here? And that being the movement, for me at least. It's about pushing those communities and showing them also different ways of being, of relating to each other, of organizing, of being in a collective together. And I know a lot of what we've talked about is polyamory and community building and how those things are so deeply connected. So will you talk a little bit about that angle and why polyamory and community building is important in the political moment?
Yeah, so my name is Ramsey, and I've been a part of the Poly Seattle community for about 2 years, and in the BIPOC community kink organization for a year. And being in the poly community to me is like kind of accepting how messy everything is and how disorganized it's all going to feel, because everybody has so much like power, so many voices, and this is like a community where everybody's really listening to each other. And so connecting those voices that everybody has and sharing that and building this foundation where you can both hear each other, but kind of like unite in a way to help connect everyone together is a lot of work and exhausting. But to me, especially in this political moment, polyamory is about like accepting everyone and just like loving everyone. And I always hate it because it's just like, it is kind of like all lives matter, like all loves matter. And like, because it does, right? Everybody does. It's but like it's giving that voice to everybody. And I think that it's making everyone accepted is like the number one thing. And that like polyamory, to me, you can't just be polyamorous and not accept everything else, because you have to just accept all of these different parts of your identity and be open to like the variety.
Yeah, and I wanted to also speak to, Jessa, you said earlier this idea like polyamory, it's white people problems. Because Ramsey, when you were on our podcast, we were talking about misconceptions that people have about race, polyamory, non-monogamy, representation, and politics. What about that piece of it? Poly is white people problems.
It is. Okay, so I think it is very much a like white-centric problem, but that's not just because it's a lot of white people. I think it's kind of a lot of shame around like people of color, where it's like assumed that like it's not possible. Like everybody else doesn't get to have that conversation. So a lot of times, like my dad, he cheats on like every woman he's dated. And so I asked him, like, do you ever think about being like polyamorous? And it's just like, no, there's not a lot of polyamorous people in Chicago. And I was like, and so I think that like there's this way where we're kind of like raised to expect everything to be like in the structure, and because we don't fit into just like society's mold, anything that's outside of that is an additional threat to our safety. So
we have folks who wanted to come up. Oh, Drew, get up here.
Hello.
Thank you. Drew, she, her. On that note, so if we, coming from both sides, there's little dogs in the background. And those little dogs are calling to be heard, but they are small voices clamoring for us to protect them. So, in a double circular way, both, if we can protect the most marginalized among us, that will provide protection for the less vulnerable. And also, the more people we get to buy into this message and mission, the more successful it will be. So, how can we both get the BIPOC community, and specifically like Indigenous, neurodivergent, on our side? How does this offer protection for them? And simultaneously, what does this protection offer not, or just monogamous people?
Yeah, Alex, did you want to speak on the BIPOC?
Yeah.
We talked about it earlier. Just say what I told you before.
Right. I think that, to me, the overall message for BIPOC people is it's not safe to even have that conversation, because a lot of times there's so much misinformation, and there's a way where it's not comfortable to just be open and be yourself in a lot of spaces. And there's a way to kind of bridge that gap, which is kind of having people show up and then, get worn down by some special white people that you feel comfortable with. And I think that it's true. It's there's a way that you kind of have to have a bridge and be that person that and have that conversation and just open that can of worms with people so that you can just throw it in the dirt and let things grow. Because otherwise, if you are trying to figure out how to protect BIPOC people, we're already protecting ourselves. You can't additionally add another layer. You just have to kind of create community with us, right? So as opposed to trying to protect us, try to just make things safer.
Thank you, Ramsey. And you asked how monogamous people can benefit from it. I'll speak to that, I guess. I don't know. Attempt to, as a formerly monogamous person. It just makes me think about how, there's what we've been talking about, I think, this whole time is a sort of reciprocal responsibility and benefit that people with power and people with less power and privilege have in this interchange. And as a person with more power and privilege, or in this case, a monogamous person, they maybe will lose some of their opportunities to be free the way that they want to be in their life. And maybe they don't know what those opportunities are yet. Maybe they just don't know exactly how they want to express themselves. So they're kind of finding out, riding on the backs of perhaps people with less privilege who are doing a lot more of that work. I don't know, that's a hard thing to carry.
But I also think to the political moment question, Jessa, I mean, that is the moment that we are living in, is a moment where we are all being called to recognize that there is no way for us to stay safe. And in fact, what is happening to immigrants, BIPOC people, Palestinians, these are all things that can happen to us. And there is no needle we're going to thread. There are no identities that we're going to obscure or hide that will ensure that it won't come for us. And I think, that's why this feels so particularly important right now. Not just for the protections that it offers us and by extension, many other people, but for that collective power, that idea that we aren't going to hide, and as Katie was talking about, in fact, we are going to stand together. There are more of us, right? In the broadest sense. And so the more that we can stand with each other and stand in our identities with each other, the safer we all are and the safer everyone is. So.
I can add to that just briefly and say that one thing that I do say a lot when I talk about CFRI and the things that we're fighting for are, if you are a person who's the target of this administration now or in the future, if that's increasing in some way. That was my alarm sound too, so it kind of freaked me out for a second. I was like, oh no, I need to change it. You know, if you are one of these people who are or will be targeted, if you're out as polyamorous, that's just adding another target on your back, right? Which is why, especially in the BIPOC community, you know, people could be like, yeah, we're not going to talk about that, right? Like, this is something we're not going to go after. And I can see that too as a trans person, to say like, hey, here I am, just fire me for being polyamorous, or like deny me housing for being polyamorous, because then you're not committing a crime, right? Let's not make it easy for them. So we need to be expanding the circle of rights. And it does, and Drew, I love that point about, like, I never quite thought about it that way, and I'm going to have to think about it some more. But how does this benefit everyone, including monogamous people? Because it does, right? We are queering what it means to have families and to love people, right? And we're expanding those boundaries in our personal lives, and I want to see us do that in our broader social and public lives as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love the question of, can you tell I love questions? I love the question of, you know, how does this help monogamous people? And I think, you know, one of the things, and this is some of the things that I've read off of y'all's like site and work that you've done already, which is inside of non-traditional families, right? Because a majority of people in the United States have some sort of, you know, non-nuclear family structure. You know, the divorce rate is like, what, 72% or something like that. And in a lot of those cases, you know, you have kids in different in different structures. You have like people who are still co-parenting even though they've married other people. There's all sorts of different family structures and dynamics inside of, you know, more monogamous communities as well, that can benefit from, you know, the work that C-Free is doing right now. And that's what I got out of like reading all of your stuff. I was just like, yeah, no, for sure. Like this is actively helping other people. And I also think that there's been a lot of work inside of the system already as far as helping non-traditional families that you can see in the work that you've done, especially when you look at the state of Washington and the municipality of Seattle. But there's a lot of language because they're trying to like figure out like, how do we, oh, there's this type of structure. How do we say that so those kids are protected? Oh, there's this type of structure. Oh, what if people don't want to get married and they just have a domestic partnership? Like, how do we do that? And so when we talk about having rights for all types of relationship structures, then that also takes out all of the different bits, like it puts an umbrella over all of that. And so I think that that's, you know, one of the ways that it helps family structures. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And Ramsey, it speaks a little bit to this idea of community building. And the more we can expand what family looks like, what kinship looks like, we're expanding what community looks like and how we can be supported in community too.
Hello, my name is Christy Michelle. I identify as queer as fuck, and you can call me they, them, she, her, it. Doesn't matter to me. I take up space. Thank you for having this moment. It's ringing in my head so loud that I had to share it. This teaches us how to love people where they're at. It's that simple. Love you where you're at. No matter where your journey is, it's a full human experience, and we all need to be protected to have that human experience. Whatever that looks like for you or for me, it's different. But at the end of the day, as soon as I figured out that an AK-47 had more rights than my uterus, I was fucking pissed. But at the end of the day, who I love, how I love, shouldn't really be anybody's business enough to discriminate against. But now it is. And so now I have to live loudly. Now I have to love loudly. Now I have to live in such a transparent way that I give other people permission to live their life their way inadvertently, it's super important to just love people where they're at. And this is why I'm here today, is to learn how to love more of where they're at. And when I have monogamous friends who are just fucking curious as shit about life and their own sexual identification and how, who are they and how do they love? And it's great to have this space and these people with an open enough, like, I'm so blunt you could smoke me. And that's my truth. And if I live any other way, then I'm not being my most authentic self. So thank you for giving me a chance to be chatty. I hope to get to know lots more of you.
This is a little bit of an indulgence for me. I'm curious. So I'm a therapist, and I work specifically, or usually, with polyamorous and queer communities. And the upcoming season, the holiday season, can be like a source of really significant stress for people around politics, around being out as queer or polyamorous, and whether or not they're going to share this part of their lives with their families, with families that they don't see that often, with families of origin that they have strained relationships with. So it's kind of on my mind as we're talking about this idea of where we're out and what feels safe and the choices that we make. If you feel up for it, as a show of hands, how many people here are out to their families as polyamorous? Dang. Okay. Yeah.
I told my parents and then they forgot, so I don't know if that
It was wild. That is what happened.
Oh my God.
I would love, in the sort of Q&A section, I'd love to hear a couple of stories from people about what that's like, or what it's like to be out and open as poly in the holiday season. I'm curious also, for those of you who have kids, how many people here have kids in your life, right? Yeah, like that you're raising, live with, like that are, okay, kids in your life. Of those folks, how many of you are out to your kids? Oh, interesting. Okay, cool. Because I'm curious about this piece too, of the choices that we make of whether or not we're out to kids, out to the people in our lives, like modeling being polyamorous to the people in our lives. And I wanted to just kind of offer this to the panel if anybody feels inspired to respond as to why and how it's important to model polyamory to the people in your lives who you love, even if it's a relational risk.
I'll go quick because I talk less. No, I'm just saying I don't talk that much. I was extremely reluctant to come out as queer, not because I was afraid of that, but more because for me, as identifying as a straight black male, I felt like that was kind of encouraging other straight black males to come into that space. And so I was really trying to hold that pathway. And then I was like, you can't be in this many queer spaces without also identifying as queer and being attracted to non-binary people. And I was like, at this point, I just have to accept it. And so a lot of that has come from full circle of just accepting that and then working to be around other black people and helping them accept those other aspects of themselves. I think what's really important is to not have, because a lot of times when we have conversations with people, we'll be referring to things that's racist, homophobic, transphobic, and I think not using those terms, but kind of asking questions and getting into the actual digging deep to where they found that out. Why do you think that way? What makes you think that way? And asking those questions so that if you're if this is your full opinion, back it up, give me the sources, cite it, and then, write a book. And then, because for me, I think there's so much held there that people don't understand, but they just think that it's real.
Something that was occurring to me when the last person asking a question was speaking is it is true that we are a threat to the status quo, and monogamy is the building block of kind of all of the oppressive structures in our society. They do go back to that, exchange of property and cementing power in a two-person relationship, and
bloodlines, kinship, like that's all the like European colonial shit that like is being manifest in like being manifest in like pretty horrible conditions in the world right now. And like the reason people don't like us is, and institutions don't like us especially, is because of that threat. Like it's not a coincidence.
That's it, exactly.
Yeah.
And showing that there are other ways of being in relation, of supporting each other and being in collective power.
I was also going to say they don't like you because you're poor.
Why I love being out to, is that the question? Why you love being out to family? Why it's important to be out to family? Yeah.
We're just all on some shit now.
Yeah. We are on it. Like, tear it down. Why I really love being out and being out to family. The other part that most of you don't know about me is that I'm originally from Nebraska. Woo! Yeah. And when I first came out as polyamorous, I was living in Lawrence, Kansas. So super fun. And it is, and I really resonate with what Katie said earlier, which is like, first of all, like when you talk about these things, like talking about them as just like, yeah, the sky is blue and the grass is green and I'm polyamorous and I'm queer as fuck, you know? And people receive it a lot better. So like being able to have these conversations in like a way that is like normal and like not making it an argument, even though people have said the wildest shit. And I know I'm talking to the right people. I know. But yeah, one of the reasons why it's been really important for me to be out is because number one, I made a promise to myself that I would never hide anything about myself. And so just for my own sake and for my like who I am as a person and like falling asleep every single night as me, just being like, I'm not hiding anything about myself. And that's just a conscious decision that I made. Number two is that being out as myself in my family, especially in my like very conservative, you know, Nebraska family, has also allowed other, you know, people in my family to come out and to be themselves and to have conversations with their extremely conservative MAGA family members. And the other reason that I love being out to family is family and friends in that vein is that it really does spark these conversations. And again, Katie, I love what you said because I feel the same way where it's just like people can say whatever. I had this man come up to me and this man loves me to pieces. He's known me since the day that I was born. If I told him that I needed $50,000 by tomorrow because I was going to die, he'd be like, I'm on it. Click on like find a way to get $50,000 to save my life. Like this man loves me. And he came up to me. This was 4 days after my dad died. And he came up to me and he goes, so Elizabeth, you like help people cheat or what? And I was like, let's talk about that, Vince. No, but not being upset about that, but just being like, all right, Vince, like, I know that you're like, yeah, like that was a sideways thing to say to me, but like, let's talk about it. Like, let's actually have a conversation about it. So like, I love being out to family and I love being out to friends because like, I do love having these, like the opportunity to have these types of conversations where you really are like breaking shit down. It's like, yeah, this isn't what you normally think about. This isn't what you know about. Like, let's talk about it. I love that shit.
Thank you. Yeah. I'll just say briefly, because we have so many lovely people ready to share, which I'm so excited to hear what everyone has to say. Yeah, my kids are older. They're, 16, 18, and turning 20. And I studied cultural anthropology when I started out in school. And for me, I wanted to, overthrow the patriarchy and burn down the binary before I even went, oh gosh, I think I'm a girl. And so I always wanted to fuck shit up, and I realized that the way that monogamy and the nuclear family function in our society is as tools of patriarchal, racist, colonial, and capitalist exploitation and oppression, right? And so I've always wanted to just live those values in front of my kids, so much so that like I've always been out as polyamorous to my kids for as long as I've been. When I came out as trans, my kids were like, this meeting could have been an email. Like care, you know, and so I'm very privileged and grateful for that, and I'm glad that I've been able to live that, but I also understand why some people don't, and I want to make it safe for people to, whether it's at the holidays or raising your kids or whatever it might be. So.
Yeah. Thank you, Jessa. Thank you so much. And that's a great segue into the last question, which is, what are the next steps for those of us who really want to support this movement for protections for polyamorous people and families? What do we do?
Thank you. Yeah. So I mentioned earlier, we have some letter writing kits. They're available online. We have some forms here. You can I'll chat with you after this as well. We need you to reach out to people. We need you to speak to people in places of power to let them know why this is important to you, either through direct experiences where you've run into issues where you're afraid to speak up, or you've spoken up and things have happened, right? Whatever the situation might be, talk to your city councilors, reach out to the mayor's office. This is election time, right? And politicians have a habit of caring about things during elections. So get in their faces and talk to them politely, and say that you want what we are advocating for to matter to them, because I can go and talk to these people, and I do all the time. And they just kind of go, well, I don't hear anything from the community. Like, are you just, is this your pet project and you're bringing this to me because whatever, or does this actually matter to real people in their everyday lives, right? So reach out, contact us. You can volunteer with us. You can be on our board. We have a couple open spots. You can always give us money, and show up in any way that you can to help us get this message out and to help connect with people like you so that we can help you share your story and talk to people about why this is important.
Thank you so much. And I love that we have all these folks who have questions and stories to share. We have about 10 to 12 minutes for our Q&A section. So if we can keep the shares and the questions to maybe two to 3 minutes apiece, then we can get to everybody. Okay, thanks. Up here.
To the point of being out as polyamorous to children. Hi, I'm Saoirse. I'm child-free. I yoked my uterus 2 years ago. Thank you. Nevertheless, though, that doesn't, I think a lot of people, when they hear that, think that I'm like, fuck them kids. Not true. I actually, one of my caregiving clients is a nephew of mine who has higher support needs with his autism. And a little bit ago, I was not sure whether to tell my family members that about sort of my polycule. And because they've always thought that, I don't know why, but they've gotten the impression that I'm monogamous. So I'm out pretty much everywhere. I don't know how they got this impression, but it is what it is, right? So I was debating whether or not to. Then my chosen family member, who I live with, she just looks me dead in the eye and says, how would you like it if Isaiah thought that it was okay to if Isaiah learned that being polyamorous was something to maybe not share with his parents? I just sat there and went, oh God. And she just went, even though you're child-free, you have children in your village that you are responsible for. What is it that you want them learning? So that's how I did. And there was some weirdness coming from sort of certain people in the family, I'm not going to lie. But I was able to tell them, listen, I looked them dead in the eye and said, listen, I'm not telling you this for you. I'm telling this because I do not want the children in my village learning that muting parts of yourself is any way to grow up.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Alyssa, and I go by Allie. I'm the founder of the spot here where you're at tonight. Thank you. As somebody who's been non-monogamous my entire dating life, and only knowing what the term polyamory was in the last 10 years, was that my children grew up in this lifestyle. My first child saw their parent cheat on me and cheat on their second spouse and continue to cheat, and then notice that I was polyamorous and why can't my dad just be polyamorous? I don't know. He couldn't. There's this ingrained shame that he just can't get over, and some people can't, right? Some people can't get over that. And then my son, with a different father who had a similar experience, but my son is the kid that's has more questions about what monogamy is. And how come people cheat when there is non-monogamy? And I just think that that's really cool because, you know, he gets to tell the kids at school that, you know, when they talk about their parents and, you know, why their parents are separated, and it's always because my dad cheated. Sometimes it's the mom. I'm sorry, sometimes it's mostly the dad. And that he says, you know, you should tell your dad about non-monogamy. Tell him about polyamory, about how he can live a life of freedom and have as many girlfriends as he wants. So I just wanted to share that a little bit.
Thanks, Allie. Hi, I'm Cass, she, her, co-chair of C-Free. You know, so I think for me, a lot of different topics that we were trying to talk about, specifically parenting and then coming out to family and all those things. One of my favorite pastimes is disappointing my mom. And so, no, but I think, in all honesty, I think that when it came, I remember when, Jessa, you approached me to start this, and I had a long conversation with my partner. Both me and my partner are polyamorous, and we were having a conversation, my wife, and I was like, I hit a point where I was like, if I chose a year ago to be authentic and honest in every aspect of my life, and if I can't do that here, what am I doing? And so for me personally, I decided to join C-Free because I care about this topic so much, but also because I care about my partner and her partner, Chris, and I wanted to fight that fight. And so the best thing that has happened out of that has been the surprise that I constantly feel for people who are not like me to show up and be supportive and be great. And I just think that that is a fantastic thing. And I get to show that to my kid, and I get to be proud of that. And so for me personally, that is where that comes from.
Hi, I will keep it very brief here. I am Becca. Let me stand over here because I'm nice and tall. I'm Becca, and I'm polyamorous, and I'd like to say that I've identified that way for a good 5 years with my husband. But the relationship has morphed over the years. You know, we started off as open. We've always kind of defined it in different kinds of terms. But the one person that we never told was our child. And there was a lot of shame there. There was always that kind of, you know, how is he going to view us differently? What's he going to do, you know, to kind of maybe like, you know, do what kids do all the time, right? They try to tend to come in between parents. And, you know, we had a lot of really just fear that just kind of came from places that we weren't really sure where they were coming from. Over the years, as we got more comfortable, I think coming to events like this, being able to share our stories and realizing that there's so many common threads that we all share, despite there being so many differences that we have, I felt more empowered to be able to come out to him. I didn't want anybody else to take away our story. So I decided to just sit down and tell him, and we did. And I will be very blunt with you and tell you very honestly that he was upset. He didn't quite know how to take it. Here he had seen us grow up and, oh, sorry. That's a very important part of this. Yes. We told him when he was 15. He's 16 now, so it's been a year. He didn't take it very well. He was pretty upset. You know, he was, you know, didn't quite understand. He was looking away, kind of doing that, you know, disassociating thing. But we left him alone, let him feel what he needed to feel. And it was a few months later, I was at a party. We were at some party that we were having, and he just found me and he started talking with me about it. He started asking all kinds of questions. And so I guess if I'm going to like share any kind of message here, if you're fearing coming out to especially your child, I would always say just give people that space to be able to have their feelings, whatever it is. Obviously, if people are being completely inappropriate with you, remove yourself. But I always say, like, give people that chance to be able to feel what they need to feel, ask the questions that they want to ask, and try to be as open and honest as you can. I myself, like everybody here, I think, is feeling a need to be more transparent and feel that call to really show up. So, yeah, thank you for your time, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you all for joining. Appreciate it. And I hope you stay late tonight.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Mistakes Were Made. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode. In the meantime, find us on email at mistakescast@gmail.com and on Instagram, also at mistakescast.